Hello Dub Nation, it's always a thrill to connect with you, especially as we're about to reveal the latest news that could shape the fate of our beloved Golden State Warriors. But before we dive into this whirlwind of information, let me make a friendly request. Show us some love by clicking the like button to strengthen our bond, and hey, if you are not subscribed yet, join our channel for a thrilling and emotional journey. Don't forget to turn on notifications to stay ahead of the game.
Warriors duo gets a golden opportunity to save their NBA careers. They must take advantage of it, because the stakes have never been higher. The Golden State Warriors find themselves in trouble once again. A 3-game losing streak and a growing list of injuries have pushed the team into a difficult position heading into Monday's matchup against the Utah Jazz. Yet, amid the setbacks, the absences of Draymond Green, Jonathan Kuminga, and Al Horford might open an unexpected and invaluable door for Tracy Jackson-Davis and Klay Santos. For both young players, this could be the moment that determines not only their future with the Warriors, but potentially their careers in the NBA. A crucial chance for Jackson-Davis and Santos. Suggesting that the careers of Jackson-Davis and Santos are in jeopardy may seem dramatic, but the circumstances make it far from an exaggeration. Their contract situations and their standing in Steve Kerr's rotation have placed them in a precarious position. Jackson-Davis holds a $2.4 million player option for next season, but before that even matters, he must first secure his guaranteed salary for this year, a decision the Warriors must finalize by January 10th. After an impressive rookie campaign in which he came close to earning all-rookie second-team honors, he has experienced a significant decline in usage. Once viewed as the center of the future, he has slipped in and out of the rotation for the past year. The 25-year-old's playing time is again below expectations this season, 7 DNPs in the first 18 games and more than 10 minutes of action in only 5 of them. Production rarely follows inconsistency, and Jackson-Davis has struggled to find rhythm or opportunity. But that may now change. With Horford sidelined for at least the next 3 games due to a sciatic nerve irritation, and Green ruled out Monday with a foot sprain, Jackson-Davis is almost guaranteed meaningful, rotation-level minutes. It is the clearest runway he has had in months. Klay Santos faces a similar crossroads. Santos is fighting a similar battle, perhaps an even more urgent one. His contract is also non-guaranteed until January 10th, and he's approaching the end of his deal without the kind of on-court resume that gives players security. The Brazilian forward logged 5 DNPs this season and averages just 7.3 minutes per game, the lowest of his young career, appearing for more than 10 minutes only 4 times. With Kuminga missing his 6th straight game due to knee tendinitis, many expected Santos to receive an expanded role given their similar positions and physical profiles. Instead, Kerr leaned on the more reliable veteran presence of Gary Payton II. But now, with Horford and Green both unavailable, the rotation is stretched thin, and Santos is positioned for the opportunity he has been waiting for. This could be his first real chance to carve out a role, prove his value, and shift the narrative surrounding his future. At 23, he cannot afford to let this moment pass quietly. The reality: jobs are on the line. The harsh truth is that Golden State could waive Jackson-Davis and/or Santos at any time before January 10th. That alone puts enormous pressure on the young players. They are not fighting simply for minutes. They are fighting for their place in the league. For a team battered by injuries and struggling for consistency, this is a rare moment where necessity meets opportunity. The Warriors need energy, size, and impact. Jackson-Davis and Santos need a path forward. If they seize this window, even for a handful of games, it could redefine their roles and reshape their futures. If they don't, the organization may not hesitate to move on. Either way, the next stretch of games will reveal whether the young duo can rise to the moment or fade into the background of a crowded roster fighting to stay alive in the Western Conference. The coming stretch will also reveal how much trust Steve Kerr is willing to place in the younger tier of the roster. Throughout his tenure, Kerr has leaned heavily on veterans, often prioritizing experience over raw potential. That philosophy has produced championships, but it has also created friction in recent years, particularly as young players search for real opportunities to prove themselves. Jackson-Davis and Santos now sit at the heart of that philosophical tension. Inside the organization, there is quiet acknowledgement that the Warriors' developmental pipeline has not produced the impact players they once hoped for. James Wiseman, Patrick Baldwin Jr., and Jordan Poole all represent chapters of unrealized potential or mismatched expectations. The front office understands that losing another pair of young prospects without giving them a genuine shot would fuel further criticism. That reality adds another layer of pressure to the minutes Jackson Davis and Santos may receive. They are not the only ones being evaluated. Kerr's ability, or willingness, to develop talent is under scrutiny as well. Analysts around the league have also begun to weigh in. Many note that the Warriors' current roster construction leaves them particularly vulnerable to injuries among their bigs. Green's availability has fluctuated. Horford is 38 with a long mileage history, and Kevin Looney has struggled to maintain the form that made him a postseason cornerstone in years past. Without reliable depth in the frontcourt, Golden State risks being physically overwhelmed by more athletic teams in the Western Conference. If Jackson Davis or Santos can rise to the moment, they could stabilize what has quietly become one of the team's biggest weaknesses. The trade market looms as another subplot. The Warriors are monitoring potential moves, especially with Jonathan Kuminga still sidelined and noticeably frustrated with his role before the injury. Should Golden State explore bigger trades, Jackson Davis and Santos could either become necessary rotation pieces, making them too valuable to move, or expendable assets if they fail to impress. Their performance in the next handful of games could significantly alter how the front office approaches discussions around February. There are also ripple effects within the locker room. Veterans on the team understand that young players earning minutes due to injuries can change the dynamic of the rotation moving forward. Strong performances from Jackson Davis or Santos could reduce the roles of players further down the bench or even challenge the minutes of established contributors. That type of internal competition can be healthy, but it can also create tension if not managed carefully. Kerr will need to balance short-term needs with long-term development, all while keeping the group unified during a turbulent stretch. For the Warriors as a whole, this moment represents something larger than an opportunity for two young players. It is a crossroads for an aging dynasty trying to remain relevant in a league dominated by faster, younger, and deeper teams. Golden State cannot rely on past success to carry them through the season. They need new energy, new contributors, and a spark from somewhere unexpected. Whether Jackson Davis and Santos can provide that spark will become clear soon enough. Both players know the stakes. Both understand that the margin for error is thin. And both are aware that opportunities like this do not come often, especially on a team fighting to maintain its identity while the landscape around it evolves. Their response, starting this week, may not only influence the Warriors' season but determine whether their NBA journeys continue. The Warriors may soon discover the darker side of Jimmy Butler if their sloppy play continues. Up to now, they've only experienced the best version of him, but that may not last much longer. Golden State's season has been a roller coaster from the very start. What began as a promising steady run quickly turned into a stretch of inconsistency, and if the team continues to fluctuate, or if they extend their current skid, the tone around Butler could shift dramatically. When the Warriors acquired Butler in a major trade last season, there were understandable concerns. His previous stops around the league came with tension, clashes, and questions about how he fit into a locker room. But none of that has surfaced in Golden State so far. By all accounts, Butler has been a model teammate. He's embraced the structure of the Warriors system, fully aware that everything still runs through Stephen Curry. He hasn't tried to dominate the spotlight or disrupt the team's hierarchy. Instead, he has taken on a mentor-like role with younger players such as Jonathan Kuminga and developed an unexpectedly entertaining chemistry with Buddy Hield. For now, the Warriors have been treated to good Jimmy Butler. But that equilibrium is fragile. Much of Butler's easygoing presence stems from the fact that the Warriors have played well since his arrival. Golden State closed last season on a 23-8 run after adding Butler, won their first-round playoff series against the Houston Rockets, and were competitive in the second round against Minnesota before Curry went down with a thigh injury. This season began as a continuation of that momentum. The Warriors opened 4-1, looking every bit like a serious contender in the West. But after weeks of peaks and valleys, they've slipped to a 9-9 record. And following their most recent loss, an uninspired performance against the Portland Trail Blazers, Butler issued his sharpest critique yet. "We're just not guarding anybody. From what I can tell, and I haven't been here long, that was never the recipe. To win a championship, you have to take every matchup personally. Sure, there's help, but we've got to be much better defensively. Much better." Butler didn't call out any individual player, but the message was unmistakable: he expects more. He did not come to Golden State to wind down his career in mediocrity. His goal is to help push this core toward at least one more championship run. It's far too early to say the season is unraveling. But if the Warriors fail to correct their defensive issues, sharpen their execution, and stabilize their identity, they may not like the version of Jimmy Butler they see next, one who demands urgency rather than patience, accountability rather than excuses. And if that moment comes, Golden State will have to decide how much truth they're ready to hear. Butler's comments didn't just echo through the locker room, they ignited conversations throughout the organization. According to team personnel, his words were not delivered in anger but with a precise, almost calculated intensity, the kind that signals a veteran drawing a line in the sand. For a team that has long relied on internal accountability, his voice now enters a space once reserved for the franchise's longest-tenured leaders. Inside the Warriors facility, coaches and players acknowledged that Butler wasn't wrong. Defensive lapses, slow rotations, and a lack of physical engagement have surfaced repeatedly over the past 2 weeks. While the coaching staff has stressed patience, the urgency Butler referenced is beginning to weigh on the group, especially given the competitive landscape of the Western Conference. Stephen Curry, still the emotional anchor of the franchise, responded diplomatically when asked about Butler's critique, noting that championship habits don't rebuild themselves, and that the roster has to want it every single night. Privately, however, some within the team admit that Curry's workload has quietly increased as the Warriors try to stay afloat during their inconsistent stretches. Draymond Green, who has historically been the loudest voice in holding teammates accountable defensively, reportedly appreciated Butler's willingness to speak up. For years, Green was the one who delivered tough truths. Now, for the first time in a long time, he isn't the only veteran demanding defensive pride. The coaching staff views this as a potential turning point, but only if the message is received rather than resisted. The front office is also watching closely. With the roster built around aging stars and a shrinking window for contention, the Warriors cannot afford internal friction or extended slumps. If the team cannot stabilize, executives may be forced to consider rotation changes or mid-season adjustments, especially on the defensive end. Butler's comments in that sense weren't just a warning to his teammates, they were a signal to everyone involved in shaping this team. Around the league, rival scouts have taken notice as well. Some believe Butler's frustration reflects a deeper structural issue with Golden State's roster balance. Others think his critique could be the spark the Warriors need, much like his past teams often responded after similar moments of blunt honesty. Coaches who have worked with Butler before describe this phase as the last call before things get real, referencing the point at which he stops nudging and starts demanding. For now, the Warriors insist the chemistry remains strong. Players have stated repeatedly that these conversations, even uncomfortable ones, are necessary for a championship-caliber team. But the tension is unmistakable. The version of Jimmy Butler they see next will depend entirely on how the Warriors respond on the court. If they recommit to defending with force, playing with urgency, and showing the consistency expected of a veteran group, Butler's edge will sharpen them rather than divide them. If not, Golden State may find itself confronting a far more intense version of Butler, one unwilling to accept anything less than a team fully aligned with the standard he came here to revive. And with the season still young but already precarious, the Warriors must decide quickly which path they're choosing. Steve Kerr appeared surprisingly disconnected from Jonathan Kuminga's situation and recovery, admitting he had spoken only with the Warriors' medical staff rather than the forward himself. His response to questions about Kuminga's injury raised eyebrows and added fuel to the growing perception that the franchise has been neglecting the young player's circumstances. Throughout the NBA offseason, Kuminga and the Warriors remained at the center of league discussions, as contract negotiations dragged out until the final hours. Kuminga ultimately signed an extension, but there was lingering concern that the unresolved tension could resurface. And while he earned a starting role to open the season, his early struggles quickly cost him his place in the rotation. Kuminga grew increasingly frustrated, feeling once again that he was being positioned as the scapegoat for the team's downturn. And based on Kerr's dismissive remarks regarding his injury status, it's hard not to wonder whether Kuminga has reason to question how much the organization truly values him. Steve Kerr shows little awareness of Kuminga's recovery. Speaking to reporters before Monday night's matchup against the Utah Jazz, Kerr was asked about Kuminga's condition, and his comments suggested a lack of clarity, urgency, and even concern. "I don't know where he is, he'll have to tell you that. He hasn't done anything. We ran full contact work, and he barely took part. Coaching the team, working with the group, I have no idea what he's doing." He went on to add, "Honestly, I only talked to the medical staff and they told me he's day-to-day. Talking with JK, he said he's not moving very well. I can't give you a timeline, JK can tell you that better than I can." Kerr continued, noting that Kuminga would need to show significant improvement before returning. He needs to feel better and be able to move better before we can put him out there. We need to figure out what's going on. We missed him when we played Miami. And then came the most telling line. I didn't talk to him, but I expected him to practice today. He didn't. Clearly the situation is worse than we thought. Jonathan Kuminga is one of the league's most valuable trade chips. Given the mounting tension, the Warriors have every incentive to consider moving Kuminga. He is unhappy with his role, and the coaching staff isn't signaling long-term commitment. One NBA executive told Mark Stein that Kuminga is currently one of the most appealing trade assets in the league due to his combination of upside and contract value. He's one of the best trade chips in the league, a veteran executive told the Stein line. Kuminga is earning $22.5 million this season, with a flexible team option of $24.3 million for next year, a bargain for a player with his athletic profile, age, and trajectory. He becomes eligible to be traded starting January 15th, and given the evident disconnect, both personally and strategically, it may be in the Warriors' best interest to move swiftly rather than let the situation deteriorate further. If Golden State truly believes Kuminga isn't part of their future, waiting may only diminish his value, and worsen an already strained relationship. The growing uncertainty surrounding Kuminga has also sparked debate within the Warriors' locker room and fan base. Several veterans have privately expressed concern that the situation is becoming a distraction, especially as the team continues to struggle with consistency, injuries, and a declining defensive identity. While no player has gone on record, league insiders report that some teammates believe the organization mishandled the communication around Kuminga's status, creating unnecessary tension at a critical point in the season. The media reaction has been equally intense. Analysts across national networks questioned how a head coach could be so uninformed about the condition of a starter who was expected to be a foundational piece of the franchise's next era. Some framed Kerr's comments as a sign of erosion in the once celebrated culture of transparency and accountability that defined the Warriors' dynasty years. Others argued that the organization is sending mixed messages by praising Kuminga's development while simultaneously minimizing his involvement. Front office dynamics have also entered the discussion. With pressure mounting on general manager Mike Dunleavy Jr., the Kuminga situation has become a referendum on the franchise's long-term planning. Golden State is trapped between honoring its veteran core and investing in younger talent, and Kuminga's frustration highlights the widening gap between those two priorities. If the front office chooses to move him, it could signal the beginning of a broader shift away from the Curry-Green era and toward a roster reset. Meanwhile, opposing teams are watching closely. Several franchises in need of athletic scoring wings and defensive versatility have positioned themselves to make offers the moment Kuminga becomes trade eligible. Executives believe that any delay could spark a bidding war, particularly among playoff hopefuls looking to add size, energy, and upside. For the Warriors, that interest only increases the scrutiny on how they handle the coming weeks. The repercussions extend beyond personnel decisions. Season ticket holders, local media, and even longtime supporters have voiced concern that the franchise is losing its identity. What was once viewed as a model organization is now being questioned for mixed messaging, unclear direction, and deteriorating relationships with its young players. If Kuminga is moved and thrives elsewhere, the criticism could intensify dramatically, especially if Golden State fails to return to contention. As the calendar moves closer to mid-January, the tension surrounding Kuminga's future is expected to escalate. Whether the Warriors repair the relationship or accelerate a trade, the outcome will shape not only the remainder of this season, but the trajectory of the franchise beyond it. Why did Steve Kerr erupt at Buddy Hield and the Warriors despite holding a 22-point lead over the Pelicans? Even in a dominant win against the New Orleans Pelicans, Kerr's frustration boiled over in the fourth quarter, leaving many wondering why a coach would be so furious in a game that was already well in hand. The victory marked Golden State's third straight win, pushing the team to 9-6 on the season. Moses Moody was the unexpected hero, exploding for 32 points and knocking down 8 of 12 three-point attempts. Stephen Curry, who had erupted for 49 points against the Spurs just days earlier, struggled to find rhythm this time, finishing with only 9 points. Despite that, the Warriors controlled the game comfortably and appeared to be cruising to the finish. But that calm shattered late in the fourth quarter. With just over 3 minutes remaining and Golden State up by 22, Buddy Hield committed a careless turnover on a simple inbound pass to Pat Spencer. Kerr immediately lost patience, shouting toward Hield and calling out the rest of the lineup for their sloppy execution. After the game, His message was sharp and unwavering. These types of mistakes may not matter in blowouts, but they can be devastating when the margin is thin. We can't be careless. We're inbounding the ball. There's no excuse for losing possession. We had another night like this, and it almost cost us in San Antonio. Kerr emphasized that the issue wasn't isolated to one player. It's a team problem. 21 turnovers. We know that if we want to compete at the highest level, we have to be much better. A sign of the Warriors finding their edge again. Despite the tense moment, the Warriors seem to be rediscovering momentum. Since their loss to the Oklahoma City Thunder, the team has responded with renewed urgency. That defeat exposed defensive breakdowns, lack of focus and inconsistency, but ultimately served as a wake-up call rather than a setback. In the aftermath, Draymond Green openly challenged his teammates, calling for accountability and toughness. That spark appears to have ignited the group, pushing them toward sharper execution and greater cohesion. Now the question becomes how far this renewed energy can take them. At their best, the Warriors look unstoppable, spacing the floor, moving the ball, defending with purpose, and punishing teams with their depth. The challenge for Kerr is making those stretches sustainable, not occasional. If Golden State can bottle this version of itself, the ceiling rises dramatically. And Kerr's outburst, rather than a moment of irritation, may have been a reminder that championship habits don't switch on and off, even with a 22-point lead and the game already decided. Kerr's reaction has also sparked broader discussion about the state of the Warriors' culture. During their championship peaks, Golden State prided itself on discipline, attention to detail, and closing quarters with precision. The slip in fundamentals late in the game against the Pelicans served as a reminder that this roster cannot rely solely on talent or past reputation. Analysts pointed out that the Warriors no longer have the margin for error they once enjoyed, especially with a Western Conference that is deeper and more athletic than in previous seasons. The turnover issue has become a recurring storyline. In several games this year, careless mistakes have erased leads, stalled momentum, or opened the door for opponents to climb back into contention. Kerr's frustration reflects not only what happened against the Pelicans, but a pattern that threatens to undermine the team's progress. With an aging core and younger players still adapting to the system, Golden State cannot afford to sabotage itself with preventable errors. There are also strategic implications. Buddy Hield was brought in to stretch the floor and provide reliable shooting, but his defensive lapses and decision-making have become points of scrutiny. Some within the organization expected him to settle quickly into a complementary veteran role, yet moments like this raise questions about trust in late-game situations. If these issues persist, Hield's minutes and rotation status could shift, especially as Moody, Brandon Podziemski, and other emerging contributors continue to push for expanded roles. The win streak has bought the Warriors breathing room, but not immunity from criticism. With the schedule tightening and matchups against top-tier opponents on the horizon, the team will soon be tested in ways that demand sharper execution. The front office is monitoring closely, aware that every stretch of play influences decisions ahead of the trade deadline. If the Warriors plateau or regress, roster adjustments may become unavoidable. For now, Golden State sits in a fragile but promising position. The talent is evident, the depth is improving, and the confidence is climbing, yet the foundation remains unstable. Kerr's eruption may have been less about the scoreboard and more about urgency, a message that complacency cannot creep in if the Warriors intend to remain relevant in the championship conversation. The coming weeks will reveal whether the team absorbs the lesson or repeats the same mistakes. The pathway forward is clear: fewer turnovers, sustained effort, and consistent identity. Anything less, and moments like the fourth quarter against the Pelicans will shift from warning signs to defining traits. Stephen Curry has officially entered a realm shared only by Michael Jordan and LeBron James, hitting a stunning milestone of 95 combined points over 2 games, a feat that adds even more fuel to his claim as the GOAT, the greatest of all time. Curry once again reminded the world of his greatness with a breathtaking performance against the San Antonio Spurs, dropping 49 points and willing the Golden State Warriors to a comeback victory that seemed completely out of reach. What makes this even more remarkable is that it came just 2 nights after he torched the same Spurs with a 46-point masterclass. With this latest eruption, Curry now stands alongside Jordan and LeBron as the only players in NBA history to score 40-plus points in consecutive games after turning 37 years old, a statistic that doesn't just sparkle, but screams longevity, dominance, and historic staying power. This milestone is more than a number. It's proof. Proof that Curry's brilliance hasn't faded. Proof that his game ages like few we've ever seen. Proof that at 37, he's still one of the most terrifying offensive forces in the league. Unlike players who rely on raw athleticism, Curry's greatness is rooted in skill, precision, IQ, and an artistry the game has never witnessed before. That's why his career still has runway, and why his impact remains unmatched. If the Warriors have any hope of claiming another championship, building around Stephen Curry isn't just the best option, it's the only one. There is no player on the roster, and arguably none in the NBA, who can replicate what he delivers night after night. And that raises a bigger question for Golden State. Is it time for a major move? Curry playing at this level means the Warriors can't afford narrow wins, inconsistency, and wasted nights. A bold trade may be necessary, just like last season, when acquiring Jimmy Butler shifted the franchise's momentum. But who could they target? DeMarcus Cousins recently floated an intriguing idea, a trade that would bring Anthony Davis to Golden State. And surprisingly, it may not be unrealistic. Davis remains an all-NBA caliber talent when healthy, and with his current situation in Dallas, his value may be lower than ever. Pairing Curry with a motivated, discounted Anthony Davis? That could change everything. For now though, one truth stands above all. Stephen Curry isn't just defying time, he's redefining it. And with every historic performance, the GOAT debate becomes harder to ignore. The shockwaves from Curry's back-to-back explosions rippled quickly across the league. Broadcasters, former players, and analysts shifted their conversations almost instantly. What was once a nostalgic appreciation for an aging superstar has now evolved into a serious and renewed debate about his place in basketball history. Inside the Warriors' locker room, teammates acknowledged that Curry's performances had changed the mood of the organization. Several players privately admitted that his level of play puts additional pressure on the front office, especially given the inconsistencies the roster has shown throughout the season. One veteran described it as a crossroads, where the franchise must decide whether it will simply admire Curry's greatness or actually surround him with the support necessary to contend. National coverage amplified the moment as well. Major sports networks highlighted the historical context, pointing out that Jordan and LeBron achieved similar feats during late career stretches that coincided with deep playoff runs. Analysts argued that Curry's surge cannot be dismissed as a statistical novelty, but rather as evidence that he remains capable of carrying a franchise if given the right pieces. The GOAT discussion, once dominated by Jordan and LeBron loyalists, expanded in a way that few expected. Commentators noted that Curry reshaped the sport more dramatically than anyone in the modern era, altering defensive schemes, youth development, and even roster construction league-wide. His longevity adds a new layer to that argument, reinforcing that his impact is not limited to innovation, but endurance. Meanwhile, opposing coaches expressed concern about what Curry's resurgence means for the Western Conference landscape. Several described preparing for him as uniquely difficult, noting that even with age, his off-ball movement, shooting gravity, and ability to stretch defenses remain unmatched. One assistant coach observed that a fully engaged and healthy Curry forces every contender to rethink matchups and rotation strategies. For the Warriors, the implications extend beyond headlines. Ticket demand spiked, local media intensified scrutiny of front office decisions, and fan sentiment shifted from frustration to urgency. Supporters began insisting that the organization act decisively rather than waste another season of Curry's brilliance. As the trade deadline approaches, the pressure continues to build. Executives around the league are monitoring Golden State's posture closely, aware that the team may suddenly be more aggressive than anticipated. Whether the Warriors pursue a star, reinforce depth, or restructure the roster entirely, one fact remains unavoidable. Stephen Curry has changed the conversation again, not with words, but with performances that force the league to pay attention. Stephen Curry matched a Michael Jordan scoring record with a stunning 49-point performance, leading the Golden State Warriors to a dramatic victory over the San Antonio Spurs in what may have been their best game of the season. Facing the Spurs for the second straight time, this time in a crucial NBA Cup matchup, the Warriors once again leaned on Curry's brilliance. While Jimmy Butler and Curry carried the team in the previous meeting, this rematch told a familiar story. San Antonio simply couldn't keep the momentum once Curry took control. Steve Kerr stuck with the same starting lineup, and for once, lineup tinkering wasn't the conversation. Curry made sure of that. His 49-point eruption kept the energetic and youthful Spurs at bay, silencing every defensive adjustment they tried. He was unstoppable from start to finish. Coming off a 46-point performance in the prior game, few believed Curry could deliver another masterpiece. But he did, and in doing so, he tied one of Michael Jordan's remarkable scoring records, consecutive 40-plus point games after the age of 30. It was a reminder that no matter how inconsistent the Warriors may look at times, they are never out of a game as long as Stephen Curry is on the floor. The Warriors also dominated the offensive glass despite the size and length of Victor Wembanyama patrolling the paint. Golden State pulled down 39 rebounds, including 15 on the offensive end, a testament to effort, positioning, and determination rather than physical advantage. Tensions escalated between Draymond Green and Wembanyama, with both players visibly trying to impose their presence and unsettle the other. Even when trailing by double digits in the fourth quarter, the Warriors refused to fold. With 5 minutes remaining, they stormed back, flipping the momentum and forcing the Spurs into mistakes. Late-game fouls sent Curry to the free throw line, where he calmly sank 2 clutch shots to secure the lead and ultimately the win. For San Antonio, these back-to-back games serve as a clear lesson. Against Stephen Curry and the Warriors, even the smallest window is enough for them to take everything. You can't relax, you can't hesitate, and you certainly can't assume the game is over, not when Curry is capable of rewriting the outcome in an instant. In the aftermath of the win, the conversation quickly shifted from the result itself to what it represents for both franchises. For Golden State, the victory reinforced the belief that experience, composure, and star power still hold weight in a league increasingly driven by youth and athleticism. Coaches around the league noted that Curry's performance wasn't simply a scoring display, but a demonstration of how a veteran superstar can control tempo, force defensive adaptations, and dictate the emotional rhythm of a game. Analysts also highlighted how Golden State's resilience exposed lingering weaknesses in the Spurs' late-game decision-making. San Antonio's young roster showed flashes of brilliance, but struggled to manage possessions in crucial moments, especially once the Warriors tightened their defensive rotations. The inability to secure defensive rebounds and close out shooters became a decisive factor, drawing attention to structural issues in their interior presence despite Wembanyama's physical gifts. The national media framed the matchup as a symbolic clash between eras. The Spurs, led by a generational prospect in Wembanyama, represent the league's future. The Warriors, anchored by Curry, embody a dynasty refusing to concede space. Commentators pointed out that Curry's efficiency and conditioning undermine the assumption that superstars inevitably decline past their mid-30s, suggesting that his timeline may be longer than previously anticipated. Inside the Warriors organization, the win sparked renewed optimism. Coaches praised the team's ability to stay connected defensively, while veterans emphasized the importance of composure and communication during the comeback surge. There was acknowledgement, however, that relying on Curry to shoulder historic scoring loads is not a sustainable long-term formula, prompting renewed internal discussion about roster balance and offensive support. For the Spurs, coaches spoke candidly about the value of the loss. They acknowledged that playing against Curry in consecutive games provided a rare developmental opportunity for a young core still learning how to respond to pressure. Wembanyama, in particular, was forced into physical and emotional challenges that will shape his growth, especially after exchanges with Draymond Green tested his poise and adaptability. League observers noted that the results of these games could influence how both teams approach the next stretch of the season. Golden State may feel incentivized to capitalize on momentum, while San Antonio may reassess how quickly they expect their roster to mature. In standings discussions, analysts pointed out that even a single win of this magnitude can alter seeding trajectories in a tightly contested conference. Above all, the two-game sequence reinforced a broader truth that echoed across broadcasts, press conferences, and fan reaction. When Stephen Curry is playing at this level, no lead is safe, no matchup is comfortable, and no narrative about decline can survive for long.